My friends, we live in an age where truth has been fractured into 1,000 mirrors, each reflecting not reality, but the desires, fears, and illusions of the beholder. This is what is meant when we speak of a post-truth world. Yet even in such a world, the self whispers, for truth is not destroyed. It is merely obscured by the fog of the collective shadow. The challenge before us is not to lament the age, but to learn how to navigate it, to find our compass in the midst of chaos. The shadow of collective illusion is a powerful force that shapes our world in ways most do not even notice. It does not appear in the form of obvious falsehoods alone, but in the subtle seductions that appeal to what we secretly wish to believe. When we speak of post-truth, we are really speaking of humanity's shadow made visible, magnified by technology, and projected upon the collective stage. Lies take root not merely because they are told, but because they answer a hunger within us. A hunger for comfort, for validation, for belonging, even for superiority. This is why falsehood often spreads more quickly than truth. It feeds the parts of the psyche that would rather remain asleep than wake to the discomfort of reality. To recognize this shadow is to realize that deception exists not only out there, but also in here. Each of us has within us the temptation to cling to illusions that confirm our biases, that soothe our insecurities, that promise us a simplified world in place of a complex one. The post-truth world is built on the collective participation of these small acts of self-deception multiplied by millions. When you feel outraged, when you feel certain without question, when you are eager to share a story that flatters your worldview, pause and ask, is this my shadow at play? To navigate truth, one must turn the eye inward before turning it outward. Just as the alchemist confronted the lead within before seeking gold, so too must we face the illusions we carry within our own minds. When you name the shadow, its power weakens. When you deny it, it grows stronger. Collective illusion loses its grip when enough individuals dare to see their own contribution to the fog. Thus, the first step in finding truth is humility. To say, I too am vulnerable to deception. I too can be blinded by my desires. Such honesty is not weakness. It is the beginning of strength. For only the one who knows their own shadow can resist being swallowed by the shadow of the collective. Recognizing illusion is the first act of liberation, the moment when you stop being a pawn in the post-truth game and begin the journey back to reality. Truth in the outer world is fragile, easily bent and broken by the winds of opinion, propaganda, and persuasion. What one group calls truth, another calls deception, and the endless quarrel of perspectives leaves the individual wary and uncertain. But the psyche carries within it something far more enduring than the noise of the crowd, the inner archetype of truth. This archetype is not bound to newspapers, algorithms, or shifting voices. It is eternal, like a compass hidden in the soul, pointing always toward what is real. To anchor yourself in this inner archetype means to stop outsourcing your certainty to the collective, and to return instead to the still point within. Jung spoke of the self as the totality of our being, a union of conscious and unconscious, a center that knows beyond the ego's limited grasp. Within this self resides the figure of the sage, the wise old man, the truth teller who cuts through illusion. This inner guide is not swayed by popularity or fashion. It whispers the simple yet difficult clarity of what is real. The world of post-truth tempts us to believe that reality itself is negotiable, that facts can be rearranged to fit desire. But if you listen carefully, you will sense the dissonance, the quiet protest of your deeper nature when you consent to what you know, even faintly, to be false. To live in contradiction with this inner knowing is to fracture yourself, but to align with it, even when it costs you comfort, even when it isolates you from the crowd, is to stand in wholeness. Anchoring yourself in the archetype of truth requires both courage and patience. Courage, because the truth within may demand that you face parts of yourself you would rather keep hidden. Your fears, your contradictions, your complicity in the very illusions you condemn. Patience, because the archetype speaks not in the hurried language of headlines, but in the slower rhythm of the soul, through dreams, intuitions, and the quiet voice of conscience. It asks for stillness in a noisy world, for reflection in an age addicted to reaction. When you ground yourself in this archetype, you begin to see differently. Lies lose their glitter, half-truths lose their charm, and the endless games of manipulation appear shallow compared to the gravity of what is real. The archetype of truth, once awakened, does not merely guide your mind. It reshapes your being. You speak differently, you act differently, you live with a clarity that others may not understand but cannot help but feel. In this way, you become not just a seeker of truth but a vessel of it, a living reminder that in a world of shifting illusions, there remains something that does not shift. The trickster is perhaps the most dangerous archetype in the post-truth age, for it thrives in confusion and delights in distortion. It is the figure that mocks, deceives, and misleads. Not always with malice, but often with playfulness so convincing that the soul forgets it is being manipulated. In mythology, the trickster takes many forms: Loki, Korya, fool. He does not confront us with obvious lies but cloaks deception in half-truths, irony, and entertainment. And because his games amuse us, we lower our guard. This is why the trickster's power is so strong in a post-truth world. He disguises deception as humor, misinformation as cleverness, and manipulation as freedom. The trickster is not only outside of us in media, politics, or culture. He lives within the psyche as well. He is the inner voice that whispers, "It doesn't matter if this is fully true. It feels good, it benefits me, it makes me laugh, it proves my side right." And when that voice takes hold, we become participants in our own deception. In this way, the trickster archetype bypasses the rational mind and seduces the emotional core, making falsehood feel not like a threat, but like a gift. But Jung reminds us that archetypes are not inherently evil. The trickster also has a sacred role to expose hypocrisy, to break rigid systems, to remind us not to take ourselves too seriously. Yet when we fail to recognize him, when we confuse his play for truth, the sacred becomes destructive. The trickster unchecked leads to cynicism, where nothing is true and everything is a game. And when nothing is true, the human soul drifts into nihilism, the most dangerous deception of all. To navigate truth in a world full of tricksters, we must first respect his power. Do not underestimate the way humor can normalize corruption, or the way clever phrasing can dress up a lie. The trickster is a master of disguise, so vigilance must be constant. Ask yourself, does this message clarify reality or does it obscure it behind a mask of wit? Does this story invite me to think deeply, or simply flatter my bias and make me laugh? By asking such questions, you pierce through the trick. The danger is not in the trickster's existence but in our blindness to him. If we learn to see his mask, we can enjoy his mischief without being ensnared by it. But if we remain unconscious, we become puppets in his endless comedy. The task, then, is discernment, to separate the playful from the poisonous, to enjoy the jest while still seeking the truth beneath it. The trickster will always be with us, in our culture, in our media, in our own minds. But if you learn to recognize him, he loses his power to entrap. You can bow to his mischief with a smile while still holding firmly to the deeper reality that he cannot destroy. For the trickster may confuse, but he cannot erase the truth that lives at the core of the self. The post-truth world is not merely a battle of facts, it is a battlefield of voices, each one clamoring to be heard, each one demanding your allegiance. The collective speaks in 1,000 tongues, and their noise can drown out the faint but steady voice of the self. To remain unanchored in such a climate is to be swept away, carried not by your own conviction, but by the loudest or most seductive chorus of the crowd. This is why individuation, the process Jung described as becoming who you truly are, is essential. It is not a luxury for philosophers. It is a necessity for survival in a world where noise has become a substitute for truth. The collective offers safety in numbers, the comfort of belonging, the illusion of certainty. But it also demands conformity. It does not ask you to seek truth, it asks you to repeat it, defend it, and protect it as if it were fragile. And so people lose themselves in the shouting matches of the age, defending positions they have not truly examined, echoing slogans that feel powerful but hollow. The noise of the collective is a kind of hypnosis. It drowns the individual's inner voice, leaving them dependent on external cues for meaning. Individuation breaks this spell. It calls you to step aside, not in arrogance but in clarity. To individuate is to say, I will not let my worth or my perception of truth be dictated by the mob, whether they praise me or condemn me. It means cultivating the strength to hold your own perspective, forged through inner work, even when it is unpopular. It requires listening to dreams, to symbols, to the movements of your own unconscious, sources of wisdom deeper than headlines or slogans. But individuation is not isolation. To stand apart is not to abandon the world but to serve it better. The individuated soul contributes to the collective not by amplifying its noise, but by offering clarity, perspective, and depth. In a post-truth world, where so many are lost in reaction and outrage, the individuated person becomes a lighthouse. Not louder than others, but steady, unwavering, illuminating a path through the fog. The journey of individuation is difficult. It demands courage to withstand ridicule, patience to live with ambiguity, and humility to admit that no one holds the whole truth. Yet this is precisely what makes it so powerful. While others are carried by the tides of collective illusion, you learn to walk your own path, guided not by noise, but by the compass of the self. To individuate beyond the collective noise is to recover your humanity in a world that would reduce you to an echo. It is to refuse the chains of conformity, while still remaining connected to the whole. And, in doing so, you become what the age most desperately needs. A living reminder that truth does not emerge from the majority, but from the depths of the individual soul aligned with reality. To discover truth is only the beginning, to live it is the true test of the soul. In the post-truth age, many claim to know what is right, yet their lives betray no reflection of it. They speak truth but live contradiction. Knowledge without embodiment becomes just another performance in the theater of illusion, a mask worn for applause. To truly navigate this world, you must do more than identify truth with your intellect. You must incarnate it in your choices, in your words, in the very way you carry yourself through life. Living the truth you discover means no longer torn in two. The split between inner knowing and outer action heals. You become unified, and in this unity there is a quiet strength the world cannot give and cannot take away. You no longer need to convince others with arguments, for your very life becomes your testimony. In a post-truth world, and cynicism whispers that living with integrity is pointless, that truth is too weak to matter, that lies are too strong to fight. But this is the great deception. A truth does not need to be shouted to be real. A candle may be small, but in darkness it commands attention. When you live truthfully, you offer a light that others, wary of shadows, can recognize. They may not follow immediately, but your example plants a seed, a reminder that reality cannot be erased, only ignored. To live the truth you discover is to say with your whole being, I refuse to betray the self. It is to carry into the world a presence that exposes illusion not by attack, but simply by existing. This is the highest calling of one navigating a post-truth world, not merely to see reality, but to become a manifestation of it. In doing so, you fulfill not only your responsibility to the age but your deepest responsibility to yourself. For the self, once awakened, demands nothing less than authenticity lived out in every breath. In the end, navigating truth in a post-truth world is not about winning arguments or proving others wrong. It is about aligning with the deepest reality within you and becoming a living testament to it. Truth is not fragile, it is eternal. What is fragile is our willingness to hold to it when the world offers easier illusions. Let us choose truth, not because it is convenient, but because it is the only path that leads us home, to wholeness, to integrity, to the self.